What if I told you that the most powerful force for transformation isn't locked away in some ancient temple, or hidden in a secret society's vault, but has been with you since the moment you were born? I'm talking about something so fundamental, so natural, that we take it for granted: the breath. But not just any breath. Today, I'm going to share something that's been carefully guarded by ancient mystery schools, validated by quantum physics, and is now being rediscovered by modern science. And once you understand what I'm about to show you, you'll never look at breathing the same way again. You see, back in the 1920s, Carl Jung stumbled upon something remarkable while studying with Richard Wilhelm, the famous translator of ancient Chinese texts. Jung discovered a breathing practice so profound that it literally altered his understanding of consciousness. In his private journals, which weren't published until decades after his death, he wrote about experiencing states of awareness that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to understand. What I'm about to share was so powerful that entire civilizations built secret temples to protect it. This wasn't just some meditation technique. This was a method so profound that multiple ancient cultures went to extreme lengths to keep it hidden. The Egyptians encoded it in their most sacred hieroglyphs, calling it the breath of Thoth. But only their highest initiates knew its true meaning. In India, the Vedic sages disguised it within thousands of verses of Sanskrit, naming it pranayama to hide its true power. The Taoist masters took it even further, burying its secrets in metaphors of embryonic breathing that only their most trusted disciples could decode. You might be wondering why such advanced civilizations would go to such lengths to conceal a breathing technique. Well, what modern science has just discovered about this method explains everything. And trust me, once you understand what they were really hiding, you'll see why they tried to keep it secret for over 3,000 years. In 1979, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp made a discovery that would shake the foundations of biology. He found that all living cells emit tiny particles of light, biophotons. But here's the crucial part that most people don't know. These emissions change dramatically based on breathing patterns. The same spiritual light that ancient alchemists talked about can now be measured in a laboratory. Let me give you a concrete example. When researchers at the Max Planck Institute studied advanced practitioners of specific breathing techniques, they found something astonishing. These individuals could voluntarily influence their autonomic nervous system, something that was previously thought impossible. But that's just the beginning. You see, the ancient Hermetic teachings talked about as above, so below. The idea that patterns repeat across different scales of reality. Modern quantum physics is now showing us exactly how this works at the cellular level. Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose's research on quantum coherence in microtubules suggests that consciousness itself might be a quantum phenomenon. And guess what influences quantum coherence in biological systems? Your breath. Think about this for a moment. Every time you breathe, you're not just taking in oxygen. You're influencing quantum fields that affect your cellular behavior, which in turn shapes your consciousness. This isn't New Age speculation, it's cutting-edge science. The ancient Egyptians understood this at an intuitive level. In the mystery schools of Alexandria, initiates would spend years mastering specific breathing patterns before they were taught the higher mysteries. Why? Because they understood that without the right breathing foundation, the more advanced practices would be useless. These ancient masters weren't just being cautious. They were protecting something so fundamental that it could literally reshape human consciousness. Without mastering this specific breathing pattern first, even their most powerful spiritual practices were worthless. Let me show you why this is absolutely mind-blowing. The Essenes, a secret brotherhood that vanished mysteriously from history, practiced something extraordinary at dawn each day. When scientists recently decoded their ancient scrolls, they discovered something that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. These mystics had somehow discovered a breathing rhythm that perfectly matched the Earth's own heartbeat, what we now call the Schumann resonance. But here's the part that's been kept quiet. The HeartMath Institute recently proved that specific breathing patterns can actually synchronize your nervous system with these same Earth frequencies. Think about that. We're talking about an ancient technique that literally lets you tune your consciousness to the planet's natural frequency. This isn't meditation. This isn't mindfulness. This is something far more powerful. I know some powerful people might not want this information getting out, but you need to hear this. Hidden in the Corpus Hermeticum, encrypted in Taoist manuscripts, and buried in Vedic texts, there's a specific pattern, a precise breathing ratio that unlocks what modern scientists call coherence. They all encoded the exact same ratio, and there's a reason they went to such extreme lengths to hide it. What I'm about to reveal will transform how you think about every breath you take. Right now, most people are breathing 15 to 20 times per minute, exactly how they've been conditioned to breathe. But buried in these ancient texts is a specific pattern so powerful that governments tried to suppress its discovery. When modern researchers finally tested this pattern in classified studies, they found it triggered what they dubbed the relaxation response. But that scientific term doesn't even begin to capture what's really happening. This isn't about relaxation, that's just the cover story. What these ancient masters discovered was a gateway to altered states of consciousness so profound that shamans and mystics dedicated their entire lives to protecting it. We're talking about a breathing pattern that can literally shift your brain into frequencies that less than 1% of humanity has ever experienced. But before I share this pattern with you, and I will share it, you need to understand why it was kept hidden for so long. Wilhelm Reich noticed this in his controversial research in the 1930s. He observed that specific breathing patterns could change what he called orgone energy, the life force. While his work was dismissed at the time, modern studies on the vagus nerve and heart rate variability are validating many of his observations. Now, here's something fascinating that most people don't realize. The ancient Egyptian hieroglyph for breath, sen-asen, is identical to their symbol for union with the divine. This wasn't a coincidence. They understood that breath was the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Modern neuroscience shows us why. Specific breathing patterns activate the default mode network in the brain, the same network that's active during meditation and mystical experiences. Recent studies at Stanford have shown that certain breathing patterns can actually change gene expression. Think about that for a moment. Your breath can literally influence your DNA. This is what the ancient alchemists meant when they talked about transmutation. They weren't just being metaphorical. I'm going to share this technique with you, but first, you need to understand something crucial. This isn't just another breathing exercise. This is a technology of consciousness that's been refined over thousands of years. The reason it's been kept secret isn't because it's dangerous. It's because without the proper understanding, people wouldn't recognize its true power. The technique involves a specific ratio of inhalation to exhalation, combined with what the ancients called breath retention. But it's not just about the mechanics. It's about understanding the quantum field you're influencing with each breath. When you breathe this way, you're not just moving air. You're actually creating coherent fields of energy that can influence your cellular structure. Dr. Bruce Lipton's research on the biology of belief shows us that our cells respond to the environment we create. And what creates that environment more directly than your breath? Every time you breathe, you're sending signals to approximately 37.2 trillion cells in your body. That's more powerful than any medicine or technology we've ever created. The technique I'm about to share combines three elements: the sacred ratio found in ancient texts, the coherence patterns discovered by modern science, and lastly, the quantum understanding of consciousness. But before I show you exactly how to do this, I want to be clear about something. This isn't a quick fix or a magic bullet. This is a tool, perhaps the most powerful tool you'll ever encounter. But like any tool, its power comes from proper use and understanding. When you understand what I'm about to share, you'll see why the ancient Egyptians carved breathing temples, why Tibetan monks can raise their body temperature through breath alone, and why modern scientists are starting to view consciousness itself as a quantum phenomenon. Let's start with the sacred ratio. In the Corpus Hermeticum, there's a passage that describes the breath of life using specific numerical patterns. These same numbers appear in the Vedic texts, specifically in the pranayama sections of the Yoga Sutras. The ratio is 1:4:2, but here's what makes it fascinating. This exact ratio has been shown by HeartMath research to create maximum heart rate variability coherence. Just let that sink in for a second. These ancient masters, without laboratories, without brain scans, without any modern technology, somehow discovered a breathing pattern so precise that it took modern science 3,000 years to prove its power. When researchers finally tested this pattern, they were stunned. It wasn't just effective. It was literally the perfect sequence for optimizing human nervous system function. But what happened next sent shockwaves through the scientific community. When neuroscientists at a leading research institute documented these effects, their findings were immediately restricted from public access. Major pharmaceutical companies began quietly funding private studies. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about optimizing the nervous system. The data suggested something that challenged everything we thought we knew about human consciousness and our ability to access heightened states of awareness. What these researchers uncovered goes so far beyond conventional science that, even now, only fragments of their discoveries have made it into peer-reviewed journals. But today, I'm going to show you exactly what they found. And to understand just how profound this is, we need to look at what quantum physicists discovered when they started studying these breathing patterns at the deepest level of reality. This is where everything changes, where the line between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science completely dissolve. The second element, coherence patterns, is where quantum physics meets biology. Dr. Mei Wan Ho's research on quantum coherence in living systems shows that our bodies are liquid crystals, capable of quantum effects at body temperature. The right breathing pattern doesn't just calm you down. It literally creates coherent fields throughout your body. This is where the third element comes in: quantum consciousness. When you breathe in this specific pattern, You're not just moving air. According to the research of Dr. Carl Prybrum and Dr. David Bohm, your consciousness is interacting with what they call the implicate order, a deeper level of reality that modern physics is just beginning to understand. Now, here's how to actually do it. Start by sitting comfortably. Your spine should be straight but not rigid. This isn't about forcing anything. It's about allowing a natural alignment. The ancient texts called this the dragon's posture because it allows energy to flow unimpeded. Begin by observing your natural breath. Don't try to change anything for the first minute. This is what the Taoists called returning to the source. You're establishing a baseline of awareness. What I'm about to share next has been hidden in plain sight for millennia. You're going to use what I call the quantum coherence breath, a pattern so precise that ancient masters spent decades mastering its subtle power. Begin by observing your natural breath. Don't try to change anything for the first minute. This is what the Taoists called returning to the source. You're establishing a baseline of awareness. This next step is where the ancient knowledge and modern science merge into something extraordinary. You're going to use what I call the quantum coherence breath. Pay close attention, because this specific pattern is what they tried to keep hidden. It works like this. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. But here's the crucial part. You want to breathe from what the Japanese call the hara, your energetic center about 2 inches below your navel. Modern research shows this type of breathing maximizes vagal tone. At the top of the inhale, hold the breath for a count of 16. This is where something remarkable happens. Studies at the Max Planck Institute show that during breath retention, there's a significant change in brainwave patterns. You're literally shifting your consciousness into what the ancients called the gap between thoughts. Then exhale for a count of 8. The exhale should be smooth and controlled. This is what the Tibetan texts call threading the needle. It should be so smooth that if there was a candle flame in front of you, it wouldn't flicker. These numbers conceal an even deeper secret. During the hold, you're going to visualize what quantum physicists call coherent fields. Imagine golden light filling every cell of your body. This isn't just visualization. Studies on biophoton emissions show that focused attention actually changes the coherence of cellular light emissions. They kept this next element secret for a reason. The ancient masters encoded one final element in their teachings. Between each breath cycle lies a natural pause, the void point. Modern neuroscience has discovered this moment correlates with a brief deactivation of the default mode network, the same neural signature found in profound meditative states. You'll want to practice this for at least 7 minutes. Why 7? Because research at the HeartMath Institute shows it takes about 7 minutes to establish stable heart rate variability coherence. The ancients knew this too. They called it the 7 breaths of enlightenment. As you continue this practice, you might notice something strange. Many people report seeing geometric patterns or experiencing what Jung called active imagination. This isn't hallucination. You're accessing what neuroscientists call the theta state, a bandwidth of consciousness associated with deep insight and creativity. Some of you might experience tingling in your hands or feet. This is completely normal. What you're feeling is increased nitric oxide production. a molecule that Nobel Prize winner Louis Ignarro proved is crucial for cellular regeneration. The ancient texts called this sensation the rising of the serpent. After about 15 minutes, you might notice what feels like an electric current running up your spine. This is what the ancient texts referred to as kundalini, and modern science has shown it correlates with increased cerebrospinal fluid flow and enhanced neural plasticity. But here's the most important part. This isn't just about the experience during the practice. What you're actually doing is creating what scientists call structural tension in your nervous system. You're literally rewiring your brain's default operating system. Let me share something that most teachers won't tell you. This practice will feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind will resist. This is normal. You're pushing against decades of unconscious breathing patterns. The ancient texts called this the guardian at the threshold. Push through it. What's waiting on the other side is worth it. Remember, this isn't just a breathing technique. You're working with the same principles that quantum physicists are just beginning to understand. You're creating coherent fields that influence not just your body, but according to research on non-local consciousness, can affect the quantum field itself. Now that I've shared this technique with you, I want you to understand something profound. What you've just learned isn't just another breathing exercise. It's a key that unlocks a door most people don't even know exists. Think about it. Every great mystic, every profound teacher, every true master throughout history knew about the power of breath. The Buddha's last words weren't about meditation or mindfulness. They were, "Be a light unto yourself." And what fuels that inner light? The very breath you're taking right now. Modern science is finally catching up to what the ancients knew. Dr. Andrew Huberman at Stanford has shown that specific breathing patterns can literally reprogram your nervous system. The HeartMath Institute has proven that coherent breathing creates measurable fields that extend beyond your body. And quantum physicists are discovering that consciousness itself might be a field phenomenon that we can influence through practices exactly like what I've just taught you. But here's what really matters. This knowledge isn't meant to sit in your intellectual library. It's meant to be lived, to be experienced. The ancient Egyptians had a saying, "The breath of life is the breath of knowledge." They understood that true knowing comes through direct experience. The power of this method frightened even those who discovered it. Government researchers tried to suppress it. Ancient masters died protecting it, but now it's impossible to keep hidden any longer. I challenge you to prove it to yourself, but understand this. It requires 40 days of dedicated practice. This isn't arbitrary. Hidden in ancient manuscripts and validated by modern brain science, 40 days is the precise duration needed to permanently alter your nervous system's baseline frequency and access states of consciousness that less than 1% of humanity has ever experienced. What you'll discover goes beyond anything I can describe in words. As the quantum physicist Max Planck said, consciousness is fundamental, and matter is derived from it. Through this practice, you're not just changing your breathing, you're changing the very field of consciousness that creates your reality. Start tomorrow morning. Start tonight. Start right now. Because the truth is, we're living in times that demand expanded consciousness. The ancient masters didn't preserve this knowledge for themselves. They preserved it for this moment, for when humanity would need it most. Remember, every breath you take is either an unconscious habit or a conscious choice. Every inhale is an opportunity. Every exhale is a letting go. You already have everything you need. The power has always been there, waiting to be awakened. This is where I'll leave you today, but know that this is just the beginning. If you found value in what I've shared, make sure to follow this channel for more ancient wisdom decoded through modern science. Together, we're part of a growing community of consciousness explorers, quantum breath practitioners, and modern-day alchemists. Thank you for diving deep with me today. Keep breathing consciously, and remember, the greatest mysteries of existence are hidden in the simplest things. Until next time, remember that every breath is a bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. Be well, breathe deep, and stay conscious.